Welcome to the 700 Club Canada. James, thanks for being with us again. We're talking about calling on Jesus. What comes to mind when you think about that?
Well, there was a season early in our marriage, Allie and I, where we really had to call on Jesus for provision.
Yeah.
Both of us weren't working, and it was a period of about 6 months where we had no income. And we would pray and seek the Lord. And you know what? God provided all our needs. We never missed a rent payment or a car payment. I mean, we've had people show up and say, hey, God told me to give this to you, and write a check for $1,000 or $800. And this happened consistently through that 6-month period.
That's incredible. I bet you people are watching right now. It's COVID season, right? We got a lot of challenges in our nation. So you take that word of encouragement from James. God sees your situation and he will provide, right, James?
Amen.
Yeah, when we call on him, he hears us. We're going to meet Shannon Atkinson. Now, Shannon, get this, James. She's been married 24 years to her husband, Dean. My husband's named Dean, so that's not bad. My daughter's name's Shannon, so, you know, we're friends already. And they lived in 11 different houses, and every single house, she made a beautiful home. That's what I love about Shannon. Let's meet Shannon Atkinson. Well, Shannon Atkinson, I'm so excited to have you on 700 Club Canada. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, Shannon, you're a blogger, and I followed your blog for years, Homemade Lovely, and now you're the author of this beautiful book, Homemade Lovely. Tell us a little bit about your faith journey and why you originally started that blog.
My husband and I actually both grew up in the same church years and years ago that was very Old Testament law-based, and left when we were teenagers. Actually got married as non-believers, and then when our oldest was little, decided that he needed a faith compass. Pretty sure that was the Holy Spirit nudging. So we started looking for church, and actually were baptized together and became Christians together about 4 or 5 years after we were married. So,
that's amazing.
That's a very brief faith journey. And why I started the blog to begin with was we were renovating a very small little rundown house. It was all that we could afford. I saw other people blogging and doing it and actually turning it into a business. And I just thought that was a really neat idea that we could document all that we were doing and maybe turn it into a business as well.
Wow. Well, you're an interior designer, and I tell you, you are amazing. Your passion is to help people create the home they've always wanted. What are the biggest challenges that hinder people from not really enjoying their home?
I think clutter and overwhelm is one thing. People just get bogged down in stuff, whether it's stuff they've bought or inherited. That's one thing. Yeah. Another that I found is that people don't think they're creative enough to decorate it themselves or to choose things. They just feel like that they need something they don't have as far as creativity goes. And then a lot of the times with those two things is they don't know where to start. They have no idea what to tackle first or where to begin.
Well, can I just say I relate to all three of those? the clutter, the overwhelm, right? That's why I have friends like you, Shannon. When you wrote your book and I started following your blog, this is absolutely amazing. I mean, the pictures, the photos in it, it's so practical, it's rich. What's the main message in your book that you want every reader to come away with?
I think that we can simultaneously be thankful for the home that God's given us in whatever season we're in or wherever that is, whatever home that is, and also make small changes and improvements as your time and your budget kind of allow over time. So both of those things together.
You know, that's what I love about this book, because it's very doable, and it's not about having the HGTV home or, you know, it's whatever we have. I love your whole take on being content and working with what God has given you. Really, you're talking about being a good steward, aren't you?
Absolutely, yes, for sure.
Well, it's not only one of the nicest home decorating books I've seen. It sits on my coffee table, and everyone that sees it enjoys it. But it starts with doing a house blessing and dedicating your home to God. I just thought that was amazing, Shannon. This is beyond just house decor. Why is it so important, and what does a house blessing look like?
So a house blessing, it's so important because we're obviously, as Christians, we deal with things that are not just, physical and seen. And so to do that, to clear out and shut down and shut out anything that's not of God in your house, as well as your life, is really, really important. That your home is where you live, where you spend your time, where you sleep, where you raise your kids, all those things. And so deciding who it needs to be for and then getting rid of the things that aren't of God is really important to that. So it looks like going through room by room, starting in the basement and working your way up through the house, and just identifying what's there and getting rid of it and praying over it and just really blessing your home to God and his purposes in your life, because you spend a lot of time there, and so does your family. So it's really important.
Well, Shannon, I never heard of doing a home blessing or praying through your house until our family hit very troubled waters, and you know of our story. And it began with practicing and going through our house with this house blessing. So I can't encourage our viewers enough that this book will provide a step-by-step way to do that if you're unsure. So thank you for putting that as part of this making your house a home, a beautiful space. The book is full of step-by-step instructions. Thank you, yay. And ideas, making it easy for people like me. And ideas on how to decorate and utilize design tips and pick colors and even determine your style, very cool. But you take people through a 3-step decorating process. I've found it to be super helpful, Shannon. Can you walk our viewers through that process?
Sure. Of course, everyone finds it easy to follow step by step versus just a big list of things. And so the 3-step decorating process is to define what your style is, so that you have sort of, bumpers or guide rails to sort of hold in your style. Because you could go and you could see all sorts of things, but it doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to go with your style, even if you love it. There are exceptions to that. But so finding your style is the first one. The second one is creating a plan. So that uses your style, but also planning out the color, planning out the layout of the rooms, like the furniture and things like that. Yeah. And then the third step is to decorate one room at a time as your time and budget will allow. So you have your plan, you have your style, you have your colors laid out. And then as your time, because everybody's busy, and as your budget, because nobody has endless money, allow, you tackle each room one at a time, but you do it in a specific order within that room so that it really works well, especially for people who aren't, designers or whatever. It's not necessarily the order a designer would use, but it's the way that I found works best for people doing it themselves in their own home.
So I'm working on a room right now, Shannon. I'll just get some, free advice from you. Tell me, what is the order then when I look at my front room, my living room, and we're going to turn it to more like a den? What would be the maybe 2 or 3 things that I need to do first, or what order? What are the order of things?
The first thing you'd want to do is sort of clear out the room to get an eye for what the space is. Take out, and I don't mean everything. I mean, leave the big stuff in there.
Good, there's a piano in there.
Clear out all the little bits and pieces, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that you can really see what the space looks like. And from there, you need to choose, once you've got your color and your style, which you've already done if you've done the first 2 steps, is then bring in any other big pieces that need to be there for the function of the room. And then you'll want to do stuff like figuring out an area rug and curtains, because those really impact the feel of a room. And once you have that, so paint color, you never ever start with paint color, because it's much easier to match a paint color to a fabric or something else that you love as an inspiration piece than it is to go the other way and choose a piece to go with a paint color that you've chosen.
I've made note of that. That's great.
Yeah, that one's a huge, huge mistake that people make, is to choose a paint color first and to choose a paint color at the store, which you should also never do, because it will never look the same.
That's true.
Yeah, so the big stuff first, and the patterns and sort of other colors and textures you want, you can bring it into the room, but then you might have to take it out just so that you can do the paint. But I promise it will work so much better that way than if you paint it all and then add stuff in after.
You know what? That is super helpful. Viewers, as you're watching, I can't encourage you enough to get this book. Now, here's a really exciting thing. Shannon's book is going to be our special thank you gift for viewers that request a copy, and with a donation of $50 or more to our ministry. This is our thank you gift. Shannon, I thank you so much for your generosity in letting us give your book away. How do people find more of your great resources?
The easiest place is homemadelovely.com.
Okay.
It's got links to the book, the blog posts, everything, and in the New Year podcast too. So it's all at homemadelovely.com.
Well, we're going to be hearing more from Shannon this month because she's going to be giving us tips throughout the month. And again, if you want a copy of this book, give a gift of $50 or more to our ministry, and we would be pleased to send it to you. It's a beautiful hardcover book that you will love. Thank you so much, Shannon. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
And now this is how Bert defied the odds after a near-fatal accident.
Thanksgiving night 2016, Bert Summer, a part-time pastor and father of 5, was fixing Christmas lights with his son James. Being a window specialist, Bert was used to scaling ladders. But this time, as he climbed to the second story of his home, he lost his footing. Bert's wife Audrey still remembers.
The next thing I know is I hear the tumbling off of the roof.
Bert fell headfirst 30 feet onto the concrete driveway.
James was like, "Mom!"
He wasn't responding whatsoever. There was about a 3-foot area where it was just covered in blood. This is not good.
I told him, I said, "You're just not gonna die on me. You're not leaving us." And then all of a sudden everything went silent.
My soul was just blowing up. In the name of Jesus, God, protect him right now. Raise him back up.
I was like, okay, God, I know this looks bad. I know this really looks bad. But I need you to take over, and I need you to do what you do.
Paramedics arrived within minutes, but it would take another half hour before they got a pulse. Bert was then transported to the nearest ER, where he was put into a medically induced coma. Bert had suffered a massive brain hemorrhage and, without surgery, wouldn't live through the night. Even then, one neurosurgeon believed an operation would be pointless.
He was like, I am not gonna do the surgery. And I'm like, please do the surgery. And he was like, he's gonna die anyway. And I said, my husband is a beast. You do your part, and God will do his part, and my husband will do his part. You know, don't count him out yet.
Reluctantly, the neurosurgeon agreed to the surgery, and it was a success. The following day, Bert's vitals remained stable, but doctors were still concerned about the possible residual effects.
The left side was paralyzed because of the impact on the right side of the brain. They said that, you know, it could be permanent. I mean, they painted the bleakest picture imaginable.
It was then the reality of what could be began to overwhelm the family.
And when I see all these tubes and him hooked up to all this stuff, I was like, oh, good God. It was heartbreaking. It really was.
What is going to be his quality of life? What if he can't feed himself? What if he can't walk? What if he can't remember he has a wife and kids? I finally just had to turn it over and be like, okay, Lord, I can't do this. I can't sit and what if myself crazy? You know my doubts, you know my fears, you know everything, and you know this man. God just proved himself to me, and that he was the comforter, and that he had it. You know, he had this. This wasn't anything for him. He created my husband, and he was going to take care of him.
I was like, you know what, everything's gonna be fine, because I know who my God is. I know what he's done and what he's capable of. I've read it, I've been taught it, and I've even seen it. And if God don't do it, it's all good. God's still God.
Alongside the Summer family, church members and friends from all over agreed in prayer.
I really drew a lot of strength from just our church people. Whenever I just felt like I couldn't pray anymore, they came in and stood in the gap.
Then, 10 days after his fall, doctors brought Bert out of the coma. Even though he couldn't talk, Audrey knew immediately that her husband was okay.
I was able to see the brown eyes, and he knew that I was there. It was amazing. It was amazing. I was like, okay, God, you didn't fail me. You know, he's here.
I said, Lord, I'm not sure what happened. I'm not sure, but I know I need you. Lord, I just want to do your work again. And he said, you will, just trust me.
In the weeks that followed, Bert continued to defy expectations.
his personality, all of his formulas for work, and all of the scriptures and things that he had memorized. Everything just came back.
On Christmas Day, the Summer family gathered at the hospital and celebrated their miracle.
God worked in an impossible circumstance, and that's how the miracle happened.
It meant everything. I mean, because we could have very easily been celebrating our first Christmas without him. And to be able to sit there and have our children, my husband and their dad, in total restoration. It was magical. It was really, truly magical.
I was getting better and quicker, and they had taken the fall risk that was on my wrist. That was a big deal to me. I'm not a fall risk anymore. I can walk, I can get up, I can move. It just made me so thankful. God can do a miracle anytime, any place for anybody, and he chose me.
No.
A few days after Christmas, Bert was released from the hospital. By March, he was back at his job as a window specialist. And by September, he was back in the pulpit.
It doesn't matter what goes on, doesn't matter what doctors say, people, no matter what. Jesus has the final say regardless.
You never have to question God's character. He is who he says he is. He is the healer. He is the comforter.
The Bible says he's not a respecter of persons. God cares for the drug addict on the street as much as he cares for me, as much as he cares for you. If you needed a miracle today, you could get your miracle today too.
Wow, what a powerful story. Bert's story speaks to God's power to heal and restore and make impossible situations possible. It's like what Ephesians 3:20 says, that God is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine according to his power that is at work within us. You know, it also speaks to the power of prayer. I love how Jim Cymbala put it from the Brooklyn Tabernacle. He said, you know where there is faith, where there is prayer, because prayer is the language of faith. And Bert's wife, Audrey, man, she understood the language of faith because she prayed for her husband. She knew that even what the doctor said was impossible was not impossible for God. And so she prayed, she got her church to pray for her husband, and look what God did. Isn't that amazing? What a powerful story. And so let me ask you a question. What is your impossible situation? What are you facing in life right now? What is that mountain that is before you? I believe we serve a God where impossible is not a thing. And so I just want to encourage you with these words. And listen, we want to pray for you. We want to pray with you. And so why don't you call the number on the screen? It's 1-855-759-0700. And we want to get a resource into your hands. This pamphlet, it talks about faith. It'll equip you to have that faith to see mountains move. And now, Angel prays for a miracle after learning that her husband's life is on the line.
My friend calls me and she said, did you know there's a shooting? And I was like, oh my gosh, don't tell me John was shot. 30 minutes later, his captain shows up at the door. I went numb. And he's on the other side knocking and knocking. I'm shaking my head no, because I don't want to hear it. And he's, open the door, he's alive.
Angel's husband, platoon leader John Arroyo, was rushed to Darnall Army Medical Center, where 2 surgeons immediately began operating to save his life. They soon discovered that a .45 caliber bullet had severed John's jugular vein and lodged deep within the nerves of his right shoulder. One of the physicians was ENT Dr. Alex McKinley.
Close proximity gunshot wound to the neck with an expanding hematoma is a grave prognosis. We knew that it was go time. We made an incision over the area to try to control the bleeding. Once we stopped that, we exhaled a bit, but there was still bright red bleeding, and so there was additional injuries. We looked and we knew that the bullet had gone through his what's called voice box, the area where your Adam's apple essentially is, your vocal cords, shattered his thyroid cartilage. And we knew that there was probably some significant damage to that area of his neck.
To help John breathe, doctors inserted a tracheostomy tube in his neck. Then, Angel was finally able to see him.
They took me back there. It was not my husband. His head was bigger than a basketball. His tongue was sticking out. It wouldn't even go back in. I just kept praying that everything would be okay.
The following day, John was placed in a medically induced coma and transferred to Scott and White Memorial Hospital for additional care. There, doctors told Angel their prognosis for John.
At that time, we knew, A, he had lost a lot of blood, B, that his voice was probably going to be different because of the amount of injury that was sustained in the voice box, and we didn't know if his voice would ever be normal again. And then C, his arm and the movement of his arm based on where that bullet went, we had no idea if that was going to come back either.
And they said he won't be able to talk because he's in a medical coma, so he's got to stay asleep until Saturday. And so I went beside him and I grabbed his hand and was telling him I love him. And he woke up.
When I first see my wife, I tried to sit up and I tried to talk to her. I just wanted her to know that I was gonna be okay. I told her father before he passed that I would take care of her. And it means everything. I couldn't speak and I was writing on a whiteboard.
He's on medicine. He wouldn't be spelling right. Like I love you would be I-H-A, just crazy. I didn't know I could love him as much as I do.
2 days after the operation, when I first saw him, he was doing his best to speak. He'd put his finger on his tracheostomy tube. He had an intelligible voice, which is very unusual in this kind of situation. We knew right away that he was a fighter, and we knew that faith was a big part of who he was and that he believed 100% that God was behind him and that he was going to get through his injuries.
As John slowly recovered his voice, he began sharing what happened that day.
Senator, all units, just advised, we have an active shooter currently on Fort Hood. Just be advised, they're saying that the vehicle was a dark Toyota Camry.
I've been in combat several times. Being a Green Beret, you just know what shots fired sound like. And as I was looking where the shots were fired, a vehicle pulls up. The next shot I heard, I was hit.
John had just parked his car outside the 1st Medical Brigade when a .45 caliber slug ripped through his throat.
I see someone walking towards me in the distance. The individual gets close to me within 10 feet, and I realize that it's the shooter. Jesus, help. And that's the only thing I could try to muster was Jesus, help. Probably the simplest prayer I've ever prayed, but it was the most profound because he stopped, looked around, and then walked into a building. I was just paralyzed. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that he didn't see me. It was God. God shielded me.
33,000 block of 72nd Street. We have multiple gunshot victims. We also have some people that are escaping through windows.
8 minutes after the first shot, 3 medics came running to the scene. Gripping his throat, John called out to warn them.
I yelled back to them from across the parking lot, "No, I've been shot. There's a shooter."
Army Specialist Ivan Lopez opened fire, killing 3 people and wounding 16 others.
Confronted by military police in a parking lot, he then turned the gun on himself.
They believe Specialist Ivan Lopez had an argument with a fellow soldier before the shooting.
The suspect had been evaluated for post-traumatic stress disorder and was receiving treatment for depression and anxiety.
In just a few weeks, John fully regained his voice and was eventually transferred to Brooke Army Medical Center, where he continues to receive therapy for his right arm. Last year, John was awarded the Soldier's Medal for heroism above and beyond the call of duty, for warning others on the day of the shooting. And today, he serves as an aide to a 2-star general at Fort Sam Houston.
When everything was said and done, and I look at the sequence of events between where John was shot, the timing of how quickly he was taken from the location to the hospital, and then being rushed right to the operating room with 2 surgeons who were ready to go, being able to stop that bleeding, all of that in such a short period of time, I think it's nothing short of a miracle.
I don't believe in luck. It's Christ. It's God, and I can't explain it any better than that.
At the end of the day, I should never even be here. They said I would have a trach in my neck for a minimum of 6 months. It was out in 2 months. They said, we don't know if you ever talk again. I'm talking to you right now. They said that we don't know what's going on with your arm. My arm moves today. There's no limits when it comes to God.
Looking for a unique Christmas gift to give this year? For a one-time donation of $50 or more, you'll receive Homemade Lovely, a new book by interior designer Shannon Atkinson, who shares unique tips on styling and decorating your home. Your donation of $50 or more enables us to work together to share the good news during this holiday season. This offer won't last long. Contact us today. Well, it certainly was a privilege to meet Shannon Atkinson today and this beautiful book, Homemade Lovely. And for a gift of $50 or more to our ministry, we will send you this as a thank you gift. So call us today and get this amazing book. James, we have people call all the time, our 24/7 call line, right? Our call center. And often they leave encouraging word for us. So Elizabeth said, I really look forward to watching 700 Club. The whole program promotes hope in these dark days. That's what it's about.
And Sylvia wrote in and said, God bless you for your dedication to advancing his kingdom. That is what we're all about.
It is. And I love that we're doing the movement segments on our show, James, you're often in many of them because you're one of these guys out in the streets, right?
We're seeing God move.
We are seeing God move. I'm seeing that in my own life. We're seeing it across Canada. So that's why we share the good news every day. Here's a power verse for you. Psalm 50, verse 15. And call on me in the day of trouble.
I will deliver you and you will honor me. God bless you, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.
To contact us, visit 700club.ca. Tomorrow on the 700 Club Canada.
If you say yes and you walk through it, and I mean, sometimes we say no, and I'm not saying that's a total bad thing. I think there's a lot of grace there with God. He knows our hearts.
Yeah.
But when you say yes, he makes it into something really beautiful and really unexpected. So that's really what's been happening over the last couple years. We started calling it the table because we wanted to gather around a table and just, discuss the word of God and pray together. And it grew from 10 people to now we call it the gathering.